I mean, so affirmative action is it's a good and bad thing. It's a gray area. It's
Yeah.
uh, it's definitely giving people a leg up that have been over time, disadvantaged in a variety of just a skein of disadvantages that all kind of work in whatever mystic magical ways they work for each individual person that comes across a different barrier.
Yeah.
So
And
it's absolutely a good thing in that manner. But
yeah.
what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say, I'm all for uh, helping people overcome their, uh, any kind of hurdles they have to overcome because of past issues or present challenges. But I think it has to be done carefully.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
that's almost like a completely different episode right there,
Yeah.
honestly. Like that's so huge.
I mean, to me, the devil's advocate standpoint would be that, in this hypothetical scenario, you've got, let's say it's a small school, you've got 100 seats in the class. And obviously, if you have this quota where a certain amount of non-white people have to be accepted in, uh, regardless of their scores. I mean, obviously, their scores probably play into it as far as, like, if 200 black people apply to it, obviously they're going to whittle out some of them based on scores or whatever. But they've got to have a certain percentage, and this is a thing, like certain offices and, corporations or whatever have race quotas, which is, you know,
that's a
I,
whole different
yeah,
topic right there. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like there is a legitimate reason to feel slighted when that's not benefiting you, even though it's a system intended to counterbalance, you know, uh, these disadvantages that are very real. They're disadvantages that were put in place, and you're not even actively participating in propagating, right? But
Yeah.
still, you're suffering as a result of creating that handicap to help someone else up. So, do you feel frustrated at that? I mean, I could see that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I absolutely could as well.
So
Um,
that's where empathy falls off for some people, because they say, "Boo hoo, you're white, you have it easy," automatically because you're white, and
well, that's
they aren't
racist
listening.
too, isn't it?
It is, but
Uh,
they're not listening to the devil's advocate side of view, or point of view. Everyone has a legitimate gripe in this situation.
yeah, and I would say that certain um, uncontrollable conditions, that skin color, genetics, country of origin, or whatever, like those things do play a part, but they don't embody who you are as a person. You're much more than that, and to reduce it to that is well, I got a lot to say about that, but maybe I'll leave it alone. But I think it does a disservice to those who people who follow that ideology, I guess, hope to serve. Um, teach a man to fish, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, but getting back to the devil's advocate thing, whew, there's a lot going on there. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
I mean, I don't think it's right to just tell everyone, like, hey, it's, taboo, like, don't bring up this opposing argument, because I can totally see how you would look like an asshole being like, oh, hey, I feel like I've been disadvantaged because of this affirmative action. And it's like, well, yeah, we don't have all the same disadvantages because of our color, and that's a shitty thing. Like,
yeah,
obviously, in a perfect world, that that wouldn't have been an issue to begin with, and everyone would have just been equal from the beginning of time, the way it should have been. But
Yeah,
it's not that way, unfortunately. So
but well, and thinking about it, that actually kind of made me consider some different things. That looking at it from such a superficial angle, like skin color or national origin or something, well, that ignores all the other bullshit reasons people have been oppressed or mocked or bullied or whatever. I got glasses. Oh, nerd, you're a nerd because you got glasses and you know stuff. Like, what about that? That's as every bit legitimate as something else that another person has gone through. And there's probably worse stuff.
ooh, ooh.
People who are overweight or something, they go through a lot of bullshit.
I'm going to play devil's advocate to the nerd thing. 'Cause I was called a nerd as well, and yeah, in the beginning, that definitely beat me down. But I feel like it. I feel like I emerged stronger from it, and I think there's a lesson to be learned in that. What you choose to do with the adversity you're faced with, how you let it shape your character has a lot to do with what you come to expect as far as being treated in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're like, woe is me, I was called a nerd all my life and I had it so hard, my self-esteem was low, I really need someone to, pay for my college for me and let me get a leg up on things because I had it so hard. Or you could be like, you know what, I'm going to show you how cool it is to be a nerd because I'm smart and I can get into college based on my, scholarship, my aptitude for learning or whatever. I can take that and parlay it into success later in life. And, those are two different, that's a fork in the road that you choose pretty early on, but you can always jump over to the other road, you
Well,
know?
yeah, and things it isn't reason isn't black and white. Like it's not like it's a pessimistic world or an optimistic world. There's either darkness and Cthulhu or rainbows and unicorns. Like it's kind of all over the place. Yeah, because I went through the same kind of thing, and I would say that the challenges that I faced, the bullying and all the stuff that I had to deal with growing up, um, fortified me. Like, and it kind of like honed my skills. If I didn't have to go through that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Yeah, yeah. I call myself an idiot, but I can do a lot of stuff. I've rebuilt engines and built stuff and done everything.
I've always
And
described you as a Renaissance man.
yeah, and if I were not a nerd, I would not be that. Like I wouldn't have to rise to the challenge. And I think that maybe coddling people and um, you know, trying to give people a pillow to land on, like, might actually be detrimental to their progress.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with like a workout. You're trying to build muscle and stuff. You don't just like sit on a couch and eat potato chips. No, you break yourself so that you can become stronger.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how my upbringing was. And I don't resent it for 1 minute. In fact, I appreciate it. This has gone down a completely different path, but I think it is relevant.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like meeting those challenges is what makes you stronger and more capable. I don't know. Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think there's a wrong way to come at the devil's advocate stance, but I don't think it's ever wrong to consider that stance. It just needs to be presented. Well, I mean, it should be presented tactfully, just like anything else, you know.
Yeah. I mean, a devil's advocate argument is generally used to provide like balance to a discussion, especially one that where all parties kind of like lean one way or the other. You kind of throw out, hey, what if, or what about this thing, and challenge people to think, because that challenge is what yields the truth, I guess, of the argument.
Yeah.
And it makes people who are hard set in their ways like question things like, whoa, wait a minute, I never thought about that. And it brings up new ideas, and that's good. Like, it's totally a good thing.
So there was another thing I read about, and that they've done studies that show that that's actually not the case. Like, people, when faced with devil's advocates, don't actually, like, it actually drives them further into their own beliefs. And that they are hypothesizing that that's because typically when you take the stance of devil's advocate as opposed to an actual dissenter, like you're stating your opinion rather than a hypothetical opinion, people recognize that difference in conviction, I suppose, and that actually changes the way that it sways them. Like, they're less likely to give any credence to the devil's advocate. They're a little more likely to give credence to the person that genuinely believes something opposite that they do. But in both situations, they tend to like not think fondly of that person.
Yeah.
And then there's the case where a lot of people see through the thin veil of using the devil's advocacy as this kind of cloak to pretend that it's not really their opinion when it pretty clearly is. So they really don't like that, because not only do you think opposite them, but you're pretending that you don't, but you still want to talk about it.
I could see how someone would see that as a little disingenuous. Yeah.
It is, and I think that's one of the wrong ways to go about being the devil's advocate. Either own your opinion, or genuinely try to challenge the groupthink.
Yeah. I honestly, I wish like more people would take a debate course in school, understanding how valuable the devil's advocate position is.
Yeah.
It's like science. Science isn't like, oh, well, wait, science isn't like a consensus necessarily. It's a process. But it doesn't come from the standpoint of, we know what's right, and this is it. These are the facts, and done. It's an ever evolving kind of thing, constantly challenging itself, questioning itself, testing and reevaluating things. The point is to figure out how things work, and such is debate. The human condition. Like, we don't know anything.